Welcome back to Yes and for Democracy with Christy and Joni. We're on episode 9, Freed from Greed. We're going to be talking about all kinds of, I don't know, challenging topics, but on our light fashion that we do, talking about how to move toward what we want away from what we don't want. So what's the greed thing that we're starting out with? It's gerrymandering. And the Merriam-Webster definition of that, I think, is important. Let me read this to you. The practice of dividing or arranging a territorial unit into political districts in a way that gives one political party an unfair advantage in elections. And so what happened? The Republicans did a whole bunch of this. And the Democrats decided to respond in a way more respectful way that Republicans just crammed it down their constituents' throats. This is how it's going to be. Whereas the Democrats have taken them to a vote. It happened in California. It just happened this week in Virginia, where voters said, yes, we will redistrict and we will do it temporarily in response to the Republicans' power grab by doing gerrymandering for people unwillingly. And Joni has looked up the statistics for how much we Americans just love gerrymandering.
Yeah, this was from last August, a YouGov poll that said 75% of Americans across all political persuasions do not like gerrymandering. And fairness is a value that is important to everyone across the political persuasion. And it doesn't seem fair. And we don't like that.
Yeah, it's fairness and it's also feeling like your vote matters. People, when there are already 341 million people in the country, can feel like, oh, I'm just a little nothing. But particularly if your vote has now been pushed off into a corner where you're no longer representative of your area, you're going to feel even more likely to be disenfranchised and feel like you don't have a voice. So, and we talk about this virtually every week. Every voice matters, including yours. And so for us to have gerrymandering where it then says, well, you know what? I'm only going to count the votes that matter to us. We get to pick the people we want because we want those votes to count and we don't want the other votes to count. People are like, no, we are not going to go down with that. We're not happy with that. We don't like having people silence us. You know, being silenced is such a big part of this. And we've gotten confirmation that we can be seen and heard. Like this happened this morning where we couldn't be heard. That's why we're half an hour late, but here we are. And we're making it work. Making it work. All right. So let's see, where were we on? Oh yeah, our friends doing gerrymandering. And I mean, I think what's beautiful to me is that it's democracy in action. When voters come and they say, yeah, you're asking us what we think. We think we don't want gerrymandering, which reflects that 75% of people who don't like it. So that to me is like, yes, for democracy. Yes, and for democracy. No, nobody wants gerrymandering, but if you're going to do it, we're going to do it in order
Well,
to make it more equitable.
and that's in the Contrarian this morning, they had what I thought was a really funny quote. It was something about how prior to all of this, the Democrats were acting from Marquess of Queensberry rules, which is the very gentlemanly approach to fighting, and but they were going against something that was more like a street fight. So now this is leveling the playing field so that you're not playing by rules that are the other side isn't honoring. And let's be clear about this. Both sides have gerrymandered. I live in Maryland, which is has been a gerrymandered state, although they've changed it so that it's less gerrymandered. But it's not something that I like. You know, I think most Americans want this level playing field, want to feel like the people who are in Congress are representing them, not that it's handpicked so that you get a Democrat or a Republican. And it's also shown that if there's a heavy gerrymandered district, your voice really doesn't matter as much as when it's more balanced. When it's more balanced, then you can say, this matters to me. And there's more responsiveness from people in Congress with that.
Yeah, in our district, it's very much gerrymandered to allow the Republicans to have more power. So we're in Tucson, and Tucson is it's pretty purple, leans towards blue, but they gerrymandered to conclude a bunch of rural counties below us, like a cross section, like a little sliver, to change the demographics so that it's a very contested district now. And it probably won't be after this election because our guy is so horrible. One of the 18th or 19th most corrupt politicians that he was identified as, which we're talking about corruption today, which leads me to like this idea of gerrymandering is a form of corrupting our election system. It's not making it illegal necessarily, but it's making it unfair and it's making it not equitable and so on, which is what so much of corruption is about. And which is what we're really strongly objecting to, but also we want to move toward being free from it. I mean, that's the title for today is how do we be free from the greed of giving people unfair advantages, giving corporate people, giving billionaires unfair advantages, giving people on the Trump regime and his family members and so on unfair advantages. We really at a fundamental level do not like that. We do not like when the greedy people grab everything and leave other people suffering. It's just very, very frustrating. And I have a personal story to tell, which I think is I hope it's what we still do. I'm a little bit older. When I was 7 years old, my family got a new car. And Tony hasn't heard this story. We got a new car. It was in 1969 Oldsmobile Cutlass. It was green. My father called it his Green Hornet. It was kind of an ugly color, but he liked the car. And I remember saying, my best friend who lived across the street could not ride in that car. Like it was my car. Like I'm not, I'm seven, right? So I'll give myself a little bit of a pass on that. But my parents were like, we're going for a ride right now, and Carol's getting in the car with us. You can either come or you can stay home. Oh, so I mean, aren't we teaching kids early not to be greedy? Like, this is my car. Like, it's not your car, Christy. Let's share. I mean, don't we do like sharing in kindergarten? Is that not a thing anymore? Neither Joni nor I have children. So, but I assume most parents try to teach their children how to share. And I don't know quite how it goes so far awry that there are these billionaires that want to become basically trillionaires at the expense of, I mean, this is our life, our taxpayer money for a lot of these things. It's very frustrating.
Well, and I don't think that there's a really conscious intent that more money is going to make them happier, but it's all subconscious that somehow this will make me happier. And the thing with businesses, and I worked in business for a very long time, so did Christy. There is this sense of, in some companies, I might hazard to say most, but some at least, that people don't matter as much. The company I used to work for, every quarter, if they were trying to meet their numbers, they do layoffs. It's like
Every quarter?
oh,
Oh,
it was awful.
harsh.
They were awful
Ew.
human beings.
Oh,
But
that's gross.
there's this sense of money can solve my problems, that if I have more money, I am more valuable. And that kind of goes through society, that if you have more visibility, if you're famous, then you're more valuable. If you're really good at something, you're more valuable. And the other part of that is, if you're really good at something and you have a lot of money, then you know everything, which is not true, and we know that's not true. But the sense of money and more money, it somehow uh, soothes some primal wound in people, but it doesn't.
I don't think it does soothe it because they keep going.
It doesn't, because you have to cure the underlying wound, and it's not going to be cured by money. But we can't do anything about that. We can't cure someone else from a distance, But what we can do is make sure that we are not being unfair, not being unfair in our assessment of what's going on. Because there's research that shows, because we are so group oriented, that if there is a proposal that is labeled as from our group, we are more likely to accept it, even if the underlying elements are not necessarily things that we would support, when you strip the whose idea this is out of it. So the thing that I would ask us to do is ask ourselves that question. If there's something going on, would we still feel the same way if it's someone from the other side who was doing it? And vice versa. Would we still not be bothered by something if it was someone else who was doing it? And I know for me right now that there are things that are going on that I would be bothered regardless of who was doing it. And I did my little sanity check that doesn't matter who was doing it. Uh, I don't want contracts, $1 billion, $1 million contracts going to family members. That there is no check and balance to that, so that there is more fairness. Fairness is a big thing, that there's fairness in the system. And there are laws and rules that are supposed to enforce fairness, but I don't know, it doesn't look like they're being really enforced right now.
Well, and I think that, I think that in a large part is why Trump's approval rating is so low. He who shall
He
not
who
be
shall
named.
not be named.
Why
That's what
his
I call him.
approval rating is in the dumper, in the gutter, whatever, because people do not like the big things they didn't like in Hungary are two of the big things we don't like here, which is cost, high prices and so on, cost of living and corruption. And the thing about this corruption in this administration is they aren't trying to hide it. I mean, they are being completely open, which I think is a large reason why this topic was resonating for me today, is that the onslaught of the amount of corruption and how boldly they're doing it in the Department of Injustice, Rick says. Yeah, the Department of Injustice. Like it's so open that to me feels like an attempt to normalize it and to
Right.
desensitize us and to go, oh yeah, that's just what politicians do. And of course they're going to take whoever's in power is going to take advantage, blah, blah, blah. Well, whoever's in power is in power and they do have more influence. But if we're looking for what we want, which is really what this live stream is about, we want politicians who want to serve. We want politicians who want to support the people. We want politicians that have heart, not just dollar signs for eyeballs. I mean, we want them to come and support people who are in need. We think about people who are perhaps getting SNAP benefits or perhaps on Medicaid or whatever, and they happen to have circumstances where they need that. There, for the grace of God, go I. Like we never know. Like you could have something debilitating happen to you. You could suddenly get a debilitating disease. You could be in a car accident, whatever. Like we could have these same things happen, and they're just like us. We're all humans. We're all in this together. We're all one in a lot of ways. If they're suffering, that means the suffering on this planet has gone up. Wouldn't we want to mitigate that instead of being like, too bad for you, ha ha, I'm going to take more money and put it in my big money bag and I'm gonna drag it away. It's
But that issue of welfare and Medicaid and Medicare and all of that has been weaponized. That using a specific example starting in the 1970s of someone who was gaming the system and had
one
been
person.
caught for gaming the system.
Right.
But because there was this welfare queen, what they called it, then people said, oh, that's bad. Everyone is taking advantage of the system. When you look at the statistics there, where's the big money? Well, it's the hospitals who are gaming the system, the medical groups who are gaming the system, the insurance companies who are gaming the system. It's
Massively.
it's it's not that there isn't fraud on the individual level, but the magnitude is so much smaller than the institutional fraud.
Which is a direct parallel to voter fraud being tiny and election fraud being a much broader issue. And it's so interesting and so easy for people to like try to pin it on the other, put it on the other person and or the other category of persons, whatever that label is that they found for them. And that just allows them to keep this machine going. I mean, this greed piece, and in the comments we have the word accountability, which is largely what we're looking for here. That if you have like, let's say we all have some inherent amount of us that has some greediness. So how do we then kind of do lean into our better selves, lean into our higher selves, and do what's best for most people? It may not be perfect for everybody, but like that helps the majority of people, lifts more people up instead of scrunching more people down. And this whole idea that the wealth gap, where the bottom 10%, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but they have gotten so far down, and that that are the top 90% versus the top 10%. The inequities are just growing, and they're becoming more obvious, and they're becoming more objectionable. And it's this corruption that if we don't corrupt our willingness to look, to see, to be aware, to understand what's going on, and to say we're not okay with this, we're not okay. I mean, you may end up feeling like a broken record because there are so many things not okay with this, not okay with this, not okay with this, not okay with this. And then, of course, there's the flip side, which we always like to get to, of what do I want to see? I want to see it like this. I want to see it like this. I want to see transparency. I want to see accountability. I want to see people come forward and be honest. And I don't expect people to be perfect. It's not a purity test. But if you have done something and you know you've done something, own up to it. That's the other thing of being able to be honest about your mistakes. I don't know.
Well, and that is also something that can be learned, is to be human and to say, yes, I did make a mistake, and not be ostracized forever for doing something wrong.
Depending on the magnitude, of course.
Depending on the magnitude, yeah. But there is,
It's
even
criminal.
on little things, people can, if they're not attuned to being okay with that discomfort, they might paper something over and not admit that they did something wrong in traffic, or that they accidentally took something that they shouldn't, or whatever it is. Uh, but being okay with that discomfort, because it doesn't feel good to be wrong. It doesn't feel good to have done something wrong. That sense of I feel guilt, and it's
Well, if
not.
you have a conscience, I'm going to
If
argue that
you
some of
have a
these people
conscience, right?
seem to have no remorse whatsoever. Like oh yeah, like Tucker Carlson came out and said, "Oh, I may have been misleading people. I'm culpable in part." Well, okay, but most of these, and I won't even get into that whole thing, but most of these people are like smash and grab. Like the more I can get away
Yeah.
with, the more I'm going to get away with. But again, for the people that come and they want to be of service and they want to do the good things. I mean, I so loved watching the little video of Barack Obama and Zaran Mandami at a preschool. Like these are leaders with heart. These are leaders who care. These are leaders who will take time with little children because everybody matters. A lot of these billionaires, I think they think children are just expendable, maybe their own kids, but any other kids don't matter.
Well, and with that kind of money comes a lot of power. And there's this sense of it, I'm not accountable for what I do. So what does it matter? And if we go back to all the presidents in our lifetime, whether we like them or not. Well, let's put Nixon's in one other category, but everyone else, Reagan, the two Bushes, Clinton, Obama, and Biden, that they cared about people. Whether or not we agreed with their policies or agreed with what they were doing, there was this sense of, I have a responsibility when I put the men and women in the armed services in harm's way. I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility and a duty to care for the families that they leave behind. And that's that appears to be sadly lacking right now. And there's that sense of compassion and care that we so often talk about. What do we want to see? We want to see heart. We want to see compassion. We want to see where every single person matters, whether we agree with them or not, that there is some innate value to that human being that we respect. And that's part of what we want, this acceptance and understanding and compassion, that when we get on the other side of this, that maybe that can be built into the system, this fairness and equity and all of that that we are shooting for.
And that makes me think about the fact that they want so much money for the military. This is where I get pretty hot. My hair gets on fire, to use Heather Cox Richards. This is our money. Our money. Collectively, like we've all contributed to this big pile of money, and our representatives are supposed to represent what we want. Not happening here. And senators are supposed to represent what we want. And we don't want to go kill people for no reason, or to have people, Americans, killed for no reason. It's so disempowering. On the one hand, you could look at it that way of like, I don't want my money to go this way and I can't seem to make it not happen, but I can make it not happen from the perspective of I can vote, I can speak up, I can say what's important to me, I can support causes I care about, I can do things, I can communicate what's important to me to friends and family. Like, where do we have power? I think that's a big part of staying in this, is continuing to focus back on, well, where can I make an influence? Where can I make a difference? Where can something be shifted? Because my tax dollars ideally go to something I care about and not to things that are destructive and harmful and alienating and murdering, no less. I mean, the high crimes, I assume, are still going on in the high seas in the Caribbean, where they're still, I would assume, doing those kind of killings. And now they're killing in Iran. And oh my gosh. Yeah. So, and money talks. That's, I mean, from the company perspective, we talked about this a little bit last week. Where we spend our money has an influence. Rick just put in the chat, no Amazon. Yes, totally going to the no Amazon zone as well. Where do we want to spend our non-taxpayer money? Our actual money that we have after taxes is important as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and I've always had this feeling with our tax dollars. I, unlike a lot of people, I don't have a problem paying taxes because, well, in years past, because I felt that it was going for roads, that it was going to help people. As Christy said earlier, I don't have kids. She doesn't have kids. And I have never had problems paying my property tax, which goes to fund schools, because there is this bigger world and I want children to be educated. I want people to have roads. I want things for the greater good. And it's not just about me and what I can get. If maybe I could have enough money to have some private island and it doesn't matter, but it does matter what everything, the world and the people in it, it matters. It matters that we care for each other. And as we're coming close to the end, I want to also just remind you the practice that I said earlier. Just check yourself to get out of this tribalism. If something bothers you, ask yourself, would it still bother me if someone else was doing it? Would I be okay with this happening uh, if someone else was doing it? And often, all of the examples that we talked about this time, my answer is hell no. It's still not okay. It doesn't matter who's doing it. This is not okay. This is not how you treat people. This is not a functioning democracy. And I want better. I want this world where people are treated fairly and everyone matters.
And Ben brought up a great point is that the children that are children today are will be our caregivers in the future. And more than that, they'll be the leaders. I want the leaders to be educated. I
Yeah,
want the leaders to be clear how the world works. Like, I want them to know there are three branches of government. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, I've gotten into Congress and I don't even know how it works. Like that would be not good. And there's this weird thing I've heard before, like, oh, don't move into that neighborhood because the old people there don't want to vote for property taxes and for schools. Again, this is maybe they'll have passed away by the time these children grow up, but it's for the greater good. I mean,
yeah,
and I think when we have plenty of money and we're not constrained, we're more generous. We're more able to go, oh, I have enough to eat. I have my rent or my mortgage covered. I have enough for heating or air conditioning. What do I want to do with the money I have that's left over? Then you might be more willing to pay taxes. So this whole thing seems to be a systematic problem. If we address the underlying issues, I think more of our innate generosity will come to the surface and allow us to be more loving and supportive and compassionate and caring for all people. And then that also has all these side benefits of like lowering crime and
yeah.
doing all these other lowering early pregnancies. Like these benefits are they're not intangible. There are intangible benefits, but there are tangible benefits to everyone doing better. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't we want that?
Well, and that all of the tangible benefits go into healthcare too. That if we address environmental issues, then there are less health challenges, less respiratory distress, and less early heart attacks. There's just so many things that happen if we take care of each other.
Right. I feel like hitting the heart button. Yes, we want to take this is I mean that's like a key thing here that I love that you expressed it. This is what we want. We want to be in a world where we take care of each other. And I'm going to get teary versus a world in which we go, I want it all and you can get nothing and I'm good with that. No, I want it to be where we help. I mean, this people talk about being really lonely and so on. We've become really in our little silos on our little computers, but we are still all interconnected. When you get that Amazon shipment, please stop ordering from Amazon. When you get that Amazon shipment, people have been involved in making it. People have been involved in bringing it to you. People have been involved in maintaining that truck that brings it. Like there's all these ways in which we are interconnected, whether we are aware of it at any given moment or not. So the more we can raise the awareness of like we're all in this together, let's do this together. That to me is the world we want to see. That's the corruption has driven this to the point where it becomes obvious that this is the change that needs to happen.
And that sense of gratitude. Now, here's another practice for you. When you sit down at your next meal, think about all the things that went into getting that food on your plate. From the farmers to the truck drivers to the grocery workers to the sun and the wind and the
I was
rain,
thinking about the
soil.
elemental things, the earth related
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
And that's we are all interconnected, and taking care of each part of that chain is something that I I want to strive for. That's the world I want to see.
And I as well. Absolutely. May it be so.
May it be.
May our little drops make a difference in this ocean as we
Well,
strive for this new place
we thank you for watching, and let's turn hope into action together.
together. Take
Bye.
care, everyone. See you next week, hopefully.